You're 7 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway, watching your parent crumble. Maybe they're crying over bills they can't pay. Maybe they're raging at something you don't understand. Maybe they're just sitting there, hollow, somewhere else entirely. And in that moment, without anyone telling you, someone has to hold this together. Someone has to be okay. And if not them, then you. So you smile, you tidy up, you make yourself smaller, quieter, easier. You learn to read the room before you speak. You become the thermostat, the one who adjusts the temperature so no one else has to feel the heat. And the world sees this and calls it maturity. They say, you're responsible. Wise beyond your years, so strong for your age. But no one asks the question that matters. What did you lose to become this person? What part of you disappeared so everyone else could stay comfortable? Let me tell you something you already know, but maybe haven't let yourself believe. You weren't supposed to carry that. You were a child. And what happened to you wasn't a choice. It was survival. Your brain didn't fail you. It adapted. It did exactly what it was designed to do when safety disappears, and adults stop being adults. It turned you into the solution, and that worked. It kept the family together. It kept you connected. It kept everyone from falling apart. But here's what no one tells you. What saves you as a child can quietly ruin you as an adult, because the strategies that kept you safe at 7 don't know how to turn off at 27, or 37, or 47. The reason this happens is rooted in something psychologists call parentification. But forget the term for a second. Think about what actually occurs. A child is supposed to be held. They're supposed to fall apart and know someone will catch them. They're supposed to make noise, make mistakes, make messes, and still be loved. But when the adults in the room are drowning, when they're absent or addicted or just too broken to show up, the child makes a calculation. Not consciously, not deliberately, but somewhere deep in their nervous system, they decide that their needs are too expensive, that asking for comfort might push the fragile adult over the edge. So they stop asking, they stop needing, they stop being children, and in their place grows something else. Someone vigilant, someone careful, someone who earns love through usefulness. Think about the kid who never cries in front of anyone. The teenager who parents their siblings while their actual parents check out. The young adult who becomes everyone's therapist, but never tells anyone what's actually happening inside them. From the outside, this looks like strength, resilience, independence. But underneath, it's terror. It's the belief that if you stop performing, if you stop managing everyone's emotions, if you stop being the glue, everything will collapse, and you'll be left alone. Because love, in your experience, was never unconditional. It was transactional. You gave peace, you got proximity, you gave care, you got to stay. Here's what people miss. This behavior made perfect sense. It kept you attached to the people you needed, even when they couldn't show up. It made you valuable in a system that felt chaotic. It gave you control in a world where nothing else was controllable. The child who becomes hyper-vigilant, who learns to anticipate needs, who never asks for anything, isn't broken. They're brilliant. They're adapting. They're doing what humans do when the environment demands it. But the cost is invisible. Because what you're doing is abandoning yourself. You're learning that your feelings are dangerous. that your needs are burdens, that the only version of you that's acceptable is the one that takes care of everyone else. But here's the part nobody tells you. You don't just carry this through childhood. You carry it into everything. Into your friendships, where you're always the one listening, fixing, showing up, but never the one who admits they're drowning. Into your relationships, where you overfunction, manage emotions, anticipate problems, and then feel resentful when no one notices you're falling apart. Into your career, where you say yes to everything, work through burnout, and mistake exhaustion for worth. Into your sense of self, where rest feels lazy, softness feels weak, and needing anything feels like failure. And this is where it gets interesting. Because as you age, the behavior doesn't disappear. It just shapeshifts. In your 20s, it might look like ambition. You're the reliable one, the one who never complains, the one who handles it. People admire you for it. You might even admire yourself for it. But underneath, there's a hum, a low-grade anxiety that never quite goes away. A sense that if you stop moving, if you stop producing, if you stop being useful, you'll be exposed as the fraud you secretly believe you are. By your 30s, something starts to crack. The exhaustion isn't temporary anymore. The resentment isn't quiet anymore. You start to notice that you're always the one giving, always the one fixing, always the one holding space for everyone except yourself. And you wonder why no one ever asks if you're okay, why no one ever sees through the performance. But here's the truth. You've spent so long convincing everyone you're fine that they believe you. And the few times you try to let someone in, you minimize it. You laugh it off. You say, "I'm good," before they even finish asking. Because letting someone see the truth, letting someone witness the child who never got to be a child, feels more terrifying than staying silent. In your 40s and beyond, the pattern either breaks or it calcifies. Some people wake up. They realize they've been running on empty for decades, that the strength everyone praised was actually just fear dressed up as competence, that the independence everyone admired was actually just the belief that needing anything made you weak. And they start, slowly, painfully, to do the work of unlearning. Others don't. They keep going. They keep performing. They keep managing everyone else's chaos while their own inner world crumbles. And they wonder why they feel so alone. Why, even in rooms full of people who love them, they feel unseen. The brain doesn't do this to punish you. It does it to protect you. Because when you're a child and your survival depends on being easy, on being strong, on never being too much, your nervous system files that information away. It builds a blueprint. And that blueprint says, vulnerability equals danger. Needing equals rejection. Falling apart equals abandonment. So even decades later, even when you're surrounded by safe people, even when you're objectively okay, your body remembers. It tenses when someone offers help. It freezes when someone asks how you're really doing. It rejects softness because softness, in your experience, was a luxury you couldn't afford. This is why asking for help feels impossible. Why crying in front of someone feels like death. Why accepting love without earning it feels wrong. It's not that you don't want these things. It's that your entire system was built to survive without them. And survival systems don't update easily. They don't care that you're safe now. They don't care that the people around you aren't the people who failed you then. They just keep running the same program, the same loop, the same protective mechanism that once kept you alive, but is now keeping you alone. Think about the person who apologizes for crying, who flinches when someone compliments them, who can hold space for everyone's pain, but shuts down the moment their own surfaces. That's not coldness. That's not emotional unavailability. That's a nervous system that learned early on that your pain was inconvenient, that your needs were too much, that the safest version of you was the one that disappeared. And here's what makes this so insidious. You don't just lose your childhood, you lose your relationship with yourself. Because if you spend your formative years ignoring your own feelings, managing everyone else's, and performing competence you don't feel, you never learn who you actually are, and you learn who you need to be to survive. And that's not the same thing. So you grow up feeling hollow, like there's a version of you that never got to exist, a child who never got to play, to rest, to make mistakes, to be held without having to earn it. And that child doesn't just vanish. They stay inside you, quiet, waiting, hoping that one day someone will notice you're not actually as strong as you pretend to be. But here's the deeper truth. No one's coming. Not because people don't care, but because you've gotten so good at hiding that even the people who love you can't see through the mask. And the fantasy that someone will finally notice, that someone will pull you aside and say, "You don't have to be strong right now," that someone will give you permission to fall apart. That fantasy is the longing of the child you used to be, the one who needed someone to show up and never did. This is the psychology of growing up too fast. It's not just about lost innocence. It's about a nervous system that learned to prioritize everyone else's regulation over your own. It's about a brain that associates love with labor. It's about an identity built on usefulness instead of inherent worth. And it doesn't matter how successful you become, how loved you are, how much you achieve. If the foundation is survival, the structure will always feel unstable. The behavior evolves, but the core wound stays the same. In childhood, it's hypervigilance. In adolescence, it's people-pleasing. In early adulthood, it's overachieving. In middle age, it's burnout. In later life, it's the quiet, aching question, was I ever allowed to just be? And the answer, often, is no. You weren't. You were allowed to perform, to manage, to fix, to hold. But you were never allowed to just exist, messy and needy and human. So what do you do with this? You don't fix it. You don't overcome it. You don't turn it into a strength or a superpower or a redemption arc. You witness it. You let yourself feel the grief of what you lost. You let yourself mourn the childhood that never was. You let the anger surface, the resentment, the unfairness of it all. Because pretending it didn't matter is what keeps you stuck. Pretending you're fine is what keeps the child inside you, silent. And slowly, very slowly, you start to give that child what no one else did. You tell them it wasn't their fault. You tell them they didn't have to be strong. You tell them they deserved to be held, to be seen, to be small. You let them cry. You let them rage. You let them finally rest. Not because it changes the past, but because it stops the past from controlling your present. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to disappear. before you learned that your worth was tied to your usefulness, before you learned that love had to be earned. And that person, that small, unguarded version of you, they're still there, underneath the performance, the hyper-independence, the chronic responsibility. They're still there, waiting for you to come back. You don't have to be strong anymore. You don't have to manage everyone's emotions. You don't have to earn your place in people's lives. You were always enough, even when you were small, even when you were messy, even when you needed. The world just taught you otherwise. And now, if you're willing, you get to unlearn that lesson. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough to finally, for the first time, let yourself be held without having to hold everything else together first. You grew up too fast, and you can't get that time back. But you still have now, and now you get to choose differently. Not because you have to, not because you should, but because you finally can. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.